All right, brethren, welcome back to part 3 of this study. This will be our third segment in this study, debunking the Mandela effect and dealing with the alleged changes that the Mandelites and Scott Johnson have said concerning the alleged changes that they have said that have taken place in the King James Bible. We're just going through some of these changes, not all of them, of course. As I mentioned in my previous videos, we won't be going through all of these alleged changes, but we will be dealing with a lot of them. And so we are now at alleged change number 5, and we're going to be, like I said, examine these alleged changes thoroughly and see if what Scott Johnson and the other Mandelites are claiming is actually true. And you'll see it's not true. It's false. Upon a heavier examination into their claims, we see that what they're saying about the King James Bible and how it's supposedly being corrupted, supernaturally changed by CERN and the D-wave quantum computers, it's false. It's a false claim that it holds no weight. And just so keep in mind, as we are going through these alleged changes, as we are taking a look and studying these alleged changes that Scott Johnson and other Mandelites like him are claiming that have taken place in the King James Bible, as we are going and examining these different supposed changes, we're going to basically see that the evidence, the vast evidence and proof that's out there that easily debunks this whole Mandela effect. And so, again, my prayer, brethren, is for your faith to be strengthened in the Word of God through this study. And I pray that for the Christians that have been deceived by this Mandela effect, I pray that this study would also, that the Lord would use this study to help them to bring them back to the King James Bible and help to build their faith in it once again. And so, having said that, let's go ahead now and start our third segment here. In the last video, where I left off at was number 5, the alleged change number 5, which is wineskins versus bottles. Now, the Mandelites say that the King James Bible should say wineskins and it should not say bottles. And they basically get this argument because wineskins, they remember wineskins somehow always being in the King James Bible. Well, they're wrong. The wineskin, the word wineskin or wineskins does not appear anywhere in the King James Bible. I looked it up in my search engine, the special software that I downloaded. Up here, I did not find it one time. The truth be told, the word wineskin is actually an NIV term. It's found in the new versions, but it has never been in the King James Bible, even though many people have mistakenly, claimed that it has. But and I'm going to look it up just one more time, just in case, to make sure I didn't make any error here. But nope, it doesn't appear anywhere. I'm typing in wineskin, and there's no. I'll show you right here. See, I typed in wineskin. There's no occurrence of that word anywhere in the King James Bible text. So, but now I'm going to go ahead and continue reading my email, more email that I had sent Scott Johnson. And this is me writing to him and just giving him this example here. And so let's go ahead and read this. As you know already, Brother Scott, many people that adhere to the Mandela effect and the alleged changes in the Bible, they claim that wineskins is the term which was once in the King James Bible, and they say it was never bottles. Well, it also should be pointed out that wineskins certainly does sound like a more old and archaic term than the word bottles. However, though, just because a certain word sounds more archaic, that does not mean it is in the King James Bible. For there are a lot of archaic words, even in the new versions, such as the NIV, New International Version. For confirmation of this, just check out this web link to a really good article by Brother Lawrence Vance titled Archaic Words in the NIV. and I give them that link there. And it kind of shows it shows a comparison. And as a matter of fact, let me click on that right now. It shows different archaic words that are actually found in the NIV, and it shows a comparison compared to the King James Version. It shows words that are found in the King James Version. When you compare these different selected Bible verses, you'll see that the NIV has the archaic word, whereas the King James Bible has a more modern sounding word. I'll give you an example here. In Ezra 9:5, the NIV has abasement. The KJV Authorized Version has heaviness. In Isaiah 24 verse 23, the NIV has abashed. King James Version has confounded. Again, the King James Version has confounded is a pretty well understood word, even in our culture today. People still understand and have a general understanding of what confound means. Next one is Ezekiel 40 verse 18. The NIV has abutted. That's pretty archaic there. I don't remember anyone ever using that word there, that term. In Ezekiel 40 verse 18, the King James Version has over against. Let me give you a few more examples here. In 2 Chronicles 13:22, the NIV has annotations. The King James Version has story. In Numbers 31 verse 50, the NIV has armlets. Never heard of that. I don't think I've ever heard of that term, armlets. Whereas the King James Version has chains. And let me give you one more here. Let's see, 1 Samuel. Where is this one at here? Well, yeah, we'll do 1 Samuel 13 verse 5 here. The NIV has charioteers, whereas the King James Version has horsemen. So, again, Brother Lawrence Vance does an excellent job here. Again, the title of the article I had sent a copy, link to Scott Johnson, was this article here. And again, I'll show you, just show you what it looks like. It's titled Archaic Words in the NIV. And it just shows a following list of different archaic words that the New International Version has. So that's, so there's that. And then continuing and reading my email here, I wrote to Scott Johnson after I had given him that link. I said, hence, a lot of people who have read out of the new versions like the NIV, they remember seeing wineskin, and because it sounds more archaic, they automatically assume that it has to be a King James Bible word. But this is simply not always the case, Brother Scott. For in Matthew chapter 20 verse 2, the NIV uses the term denarius, whereas the Blessed King James Holy Bible uses the word penny. See, penny is a much more modern sounding word than denarius is. But some people would think that, well, denarius, that should be a King James Bible word because that's archaic. Oh, no. Just because it's an archaic word doesn't mean it's supposed to be in the King James Bible. Okay, because the King James Bible uses a lot of modern sounding phrases and terms, as just shown here. But continuing here, now which one sounds more ancient and archaic? Between penny and denarius, obviously, denarius sounds more archaic. Obviously, the denarius sounds more archaic, and yet it is not anywhere to be found in the King James Bible. The word penny sounds like a more modern term, which I just explained. And so those who adhere to the Mandela effect may also claim that it should not read as penny, but as denarius. But penny is the rendering in the King James Version, in the KJV, in Matthew 20 verse 2. And it is perfectly fine. And before proceeding forth, let's look at one more example in the NIV. And I know I just read this out. I believe I read it to you all just now. But we look at this one other example in the NIV. In Esther 3:12, the word satraps is used, whereas in the KJV, lieutenants is used. Again, satraps sounds much more ancient and archaic than the term lieutenants. And yet, satrap or satraps is nowhere to be found in the King James Bible. I did my search there of that one word. Excuse me. Therefore, this example also goes to show that just because many people think that the King James Bible should use more archaic words, nevertheless, that is simply not the case. There are a lot of archaic words in the Blessed King James Holy Bible, but there are also a lot of modern sounding words in our King James Bible, and they are both right. I believe God set it up like that also. And so now getting back to the issue of wineskins versus bottles, is it true that the term wineskins was once in the King James Bible? The clear answer is, of course, no. The clear answer is simply no. And then I go over, I show him basically what the phrase or the term was, which term was used in Luke chapter 5, verse 37 through 38 in the 1611 King James Bible, and it shows it's bottles. It's not wineskins. And then I read it to him. And no man putteth new wine. Let me get my King James Bible here and read it from here. Luke chapter 5, verse 37, verse 38. I know I'm kind of going a little fast for the study, but just for the sake of time, just kind of going a little more fast. I don't want to rush through it though. Let's see here. Luke chapter 5, verse 37 through 38. And no man putteth new wine into old bottles, else the new wine will burst the bottles and be spilled, and the bottles shall perish. But new wine must be put into new bottles, and both are preserved. And so I gave him the original 1611 rendering of those two verses, and they both said bottles. And of course I'll show you here too. Let's see here. It says Matthew, even in Matthew 9:17, which was the next verse I gave to him, it's the same. It says the same thing. It's bottles. It's not wineskins. Let's see here. Let me show you here a digital scan. My next copy of a digital scan. This one is going to be showing you that bottles. Oops, this is the right one. Bottles, as you see right here, if you'll look where my finger's at, pointing at, there's a highlighted words there. Just take a good look there, and you can see it says bottles. It doesn't say wineskins. And there's your copy, a digital scanned copy of the original 1611, of the original AV 1611 authorized version, and as you can see, it says bottles. And that was Matthew chapter 9, verses 17 through 18. That passage I just showed you. Let's see here. And I gave him some more verses here in the Old Testament. Joshua 9:13, Job 32. Well, let me read Joshua 9:13. It says here, in these bottles of wine. Let me go here. Joshua 9:13, and these bottles of wine, not wineskins, but bottles, which we filled were new, and behold, they be rent. And these our garments and our shoes are become old by reason of the very long journey. And so I gave him that verse there in the Old Testament. And then I wrote to Scott. I wrote to Brother Scott after that. The term bottles is even used in the Old Testament, as we just saw there. We just saw from my reading of it. Let's see, when wine is spoken of, yeah. So the term bottles is used even in the Old Testament when wine is spoken of. I looked up the term wineskin in the King James Bible, and that term simply could not be found. And then, of course, the next one, this is really good. I actually had printed out what I did was, this is me, again, this is my email, this is part of my email here. Now I also include a photo screenshot of a Google search which I did on the term leather bottles, and you will see that these type of bottles look identical to wineskins. And again, so I was basically saying, so again, the word bottles is perfectly fine because they look just like wineskins, even when you do a search on it. I said it belongs in the Blessed King James Holy Bible, and it does. It is a good word. Is it the word bottle or bottles? When used in reference to wine, holding wine, it's a perfectly fine term in the Blessed King James Holy Bible. And this is the photo I sent to Scott Johnson here, and as you can see here, I typed in. If you just read these different categories, you can see I typed in the word bottles or leather bottles, and you can see they look identical to wineskins. Just about the same thing. I mean, you really think about it. You know, these bottles, these leather bottles are of animal skins. They are the same thing as wineskins. So hopefully you're able to see that clearly. Just trying to get close enough to the camera where you can make out the detail of what you're seeing. But yeah, you see. Again, you see where I put the search in there, and so it's very clear, brother. It's very, very clear that using the word bottles is fine. And if you just study history, just study a little bit of history on these different English words, you'll see, it will just amaze you. It will amaze you how much the historical evidence, just validifies the authenticity of the blessed King James Holy Bible. It's absolutely amazing. It really does, authenticate, the words that are found in the King James Holy Bible. Now let's continue here. In addition, Brother Scott, I also will share a link with you to an excellent article written by Brother Will Kinney on the issue of wineskins versus bottles. And in this very article, not only does Will Kinney show why bottles is the right and correct rendering, as the KJV has it, he also shows why bottles is a much more accurate and a better translation than wineskins. And so, in addition to giving you the link of the article, I also will share a short excerpt from the article. The link to the article, it will be given right below the excerpt. I gave him that link there, and it's basically showing you. It's basically a defense of the word bottles, as found in the King James Bible. And Brother Will Kinney, the article, if you want to look this up, the title of the article that Brother Will Kinney did on this issue is the word bottles incorrect in the King James Bible? And you can just do a Google search on that, or whatever search engine you use. Just go ahead and type in, is the word bottles incorrect in the King James Bible? And then just put question mark and hyphen Will Kinney, and you'll find it. It'll pop up. And I'm going to read you now an excerpt from this article from Brother Will Kinney. Brother Will Kinney writes the following: A Christian wrote me the other day asking if the word bottles wasn't wrong in the King James Bible and that the correct word should be wineskins. So there's a lot of people that have this claim here. This claim it should be wineskins. As is usually the case with words like this, all we need to do to see that the word is not incorrect is simply to learn a little bit more about our own English language and compare how older or other English translations throughout history have used this word. And he gives the definitions of the word bottle. He gives, of course, Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary. I'm going to read you this definition here. Number one, a hollow vessel of glass, wood, leather, and he has leather all capitalized, just to make an emphasis, leather or other material with a narrow mouth for holding and carrying liquors. The Oriental nations used skins or leather for the conveyance of liquors, and of this kind are the bottles mentioned in Scripture. Put new wine into bottles. So even Noah Webster, the way he defined bottles is it can be either glass, wood, or leather made out of animal skins or other material. Of course, you just show them and Mandela that. They'll probably think that Noah Webster, they'll probably think that the words that Noah Webster wrote in his own dictionary, they'll probably think that they've been changed by CERN, whatever argument they may try to come up with. But it's very clear, And then he continues writing here. Oh, you say that was way back in 1828 that a bottle could refer to a leather container. So now he's basically he's already anticipating the counter arguments that these people are going to come up with. So let me read that again. Oh, you say that was way back in 1828 and that a bottle could refer to a leather container. So what about more recently? Another King James Bible believer named Rick sent me this dictionary meaning of bottles and how it applies to the correctness of the KJV. And this is the Smith's Bible Dictionary, written by written in 1987. Yeah, this came out in 1987 by Barber and Company Incorporated up in Yorkville, Ohio. And this dictionary, the Smith's Bible Dictionary, defines bottle as 1 Greek and 4 Hebrew words are translated bottle. Chemeth, Nubbo, Bakbuk, Nod, and Escals. Bottles are of skins or of earth or glass. Skins of goats and kids are used for the smaller, and of the ox for the larger. These skins bottles are mentioned in Homer, Herodotus, and Virgil, and are now used in Spain and all over the Orient. So in other words, Oriental countries still use, skin bottles, or wine skins. They still use bottles that have a leather material made out of animal skins. Then he writes here, earthen and glass bottles were also used and are often mentioned. As you can see from this definition, bottles can be made of either animal skins, leather, earthen materials, or glass. If the word is only translated as wine skins, bottles made of animal skins, then there is only a 1 in 3 possibility, 33.33% of this translation being correct, especially if there is no additional information to indicate specifically the type of material of the container. If the word bottles is used instead, then it does not matter what type of material that the container was made of. This word would always be correct. Yeah, exactly. End of comments from Brother Rick. And he's right. Brother Rick there, what he said is absolutely true. If the use of the word bottles, no matter what material was made out of, glass, earth, wood, or leather animal skins, the term, it's always correct. Because it covers all the bases, in other words. Wineskins only covers one base, but the word bottle covers all those bases, all those possibilities. In other words. Then continuing here, he gives another definition from another dictionary, of the word bottle from another dictionary. This one is also another modern dictionary, the New Webster Encyclopedic Dictionary of the English Language, 1971. It defines bottle as the following: a hollow vessel of glass, leather, again it's capitalizement, leather or other material with a narrow mouth for holding and carrying liquors. And that dictionary was produced in 1971. Basically the same thing that the Noah Webster said, except it's a much smaller and shorter definition. But still, even though it's a smaller and a shorter definition, it's still basically saying the same thing about what Noah Webster said, what the 1828 Noah Webster said about the term bottles. Almost exactly the same thing. Let's continue here. Then the Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines bottle as a rigid or semi-rigid container, typically of glass or plastic, having a comparatively narrow neck or mouth and usually no handle. And then the second part definition is a usually bottle-shaped container made of skin for storing a liquid. And then of course he gives a link to his article again on this subject here. And then Brother Will Kinney, I'm going to continue to read here. Brother Will Kinney also writes, there are some English Bibles older than the King James Bible which also use the word bottles in Matthew 9:17, such as the Wycliffe Bible. The Wycliffe Bible uses the word bottles as well. And let me actually let you see this real quick here. And as you can tell, you can tell that the words back in the 14th century, in the 1300s, were spelled very, very differently. But you can still make it out. These words here, let me get my pen here. Actually, let me just point at it. Right here, you can tell that, see, bottles, it doesn't say wineskins, it says bottles. But men put new wine into new bottles and both been kept. So, again, so he basically, he basically does a good job of proving his case there. And again, this is back in, I think this article by Will Kinney was written a good several years ago. It's probably back in 2000s, early 2000s at least. And when Will Kinney wrote this article, the Mandela effect hadn't even, probably wasn't even, he didn't probably knew nothing about the Mandela effect. And maybe if he wrote this article after 2009, which I doubt, I don't think that Brother Will Kenny was aware of the Mandela effect. But still, just goes to show. And that he's not even dealing with the Mandela effect in this article. He's just dealing with the fact that people, professing Christians most likely, were coming up, were just, writing to him and saying, what about the word wineskins? Isn't that the word that's supposed to be used in the King James Bible? And he had a really good rebuttal to that, good answer for them. And then the next example here, the next alleged change here, we've already basically done the wineskins versus bottles issue. It's pretty clear that the rendering of bottles in the King James Bible, the Blessed King James Holy Bible, is a perfectly fine term. It's accurate, it's correct. So don't be deceived by the Mandelites that say, no, it's not bottles, it's supposed to be wineskins. They don't know what they're talking about. But since we've already covered that alleged change, now let's go to the next one, number 6. The next alleged change that the Mandelites and Scott Johnson are making such a big fuss over, and they're claiming that it's happened in the King James Bible, is care or cares of this world. Okay? I believe the Mandelites, Scott Johnson made a big deal about the King James Bible rendering of cares. And Mark 4:19 in the KJV, the term is cares. I'll read it right here. Read it from my Bible here. Mark chapter 4, if you want to follow along, it's Mark chapter 4, verse 19. I do recommend that you follow along in your Bibles. Those of you that are watching this, please do follow along in your King James Bibles. Don't just take my word for it. Always, check me with your King James Bible. Always check me with the Word of God. Okay, here it is. Mark chapter 4, verse 19. Here it says, and the cares, plural, and the cares of this world, and the deceitfulness of riches, and the lust of other things entering in, choke the word, and it becometh unfruitful. So the term cares is in the King James Bible, but here is where Scott Johnson made a big deal here. If you go to Matthew chapter 13 here. Go to Matthew chapter 13, and let's go to verse 22. Now this is where he made a big fuss over. Here we read, it says, verse 22, Matthew chapter 13, he also that received seed among the thorns is he that heareth the word, and the care of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becometh unfruitful. So Scott Johnson is saying that the word care here should be plural, it should be cares. So they're saying so he's claiming that this is another supernatural change brought by the Mandela effect. He's saying that this is another. He's basically said that this is another supernatural change brought by the Mandela effect and the CERN and the D-wave quantum computers. Okay, but again, he's wrong, because there's nothing wrong with having the word care being singular there. Nothing wrong at all. People have a deep care about things out there, and they just allow it to choke the fruitfulness in their lives. You go to Mark 4:19, it says cares. It's plural. So no, the word cares was not taken out of the King James Bible. It's always been in there. It's just that in one of the other Gospels, Matthew's Gospel, it says care, singular. In Mark's Gospel it's plural, cares, and Matthew's Gospel it's singular, care. So I think I have one of the actually. I'll save that a little for later, but let's continue on here. So both terms are perfectly fine. Both terms are correct, but this next alleged example, our alleged change here, is our 7th alleged change here that we're dealing with, and it's stuff or possessions. And this is another one that Scott Johnson, Brother Scott Johnson, and the Mandelites are basically saying, you see the word stuff, that's a modern term that was never in the King James Bible. But now CERN and the D-Wave quantum computers and the Mandela effect, because of the Mandela effect, now CERN has inserted, Satan has inserted the word stuff in our King James Bible. And no, if you just take time to study this closely, you see that this word stuff is not as modern as you think it is. But, of course, I gave Scott Johnson the reference, the verse reference there, Luke 17:31, and I'm going to read here. It says here in Luke 17:31, "In that day he which shall be upon the housetop, and his stuff," that's the word that they contest there, "and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back." And so I gave him that verse there from just the standard KJV text. And then I put, now let's see what it said in the original 1611 KJV. And so then I gave him what it says in there, and it says it's basically the same thing. Has the same wording, stuff. In that day he which shall be upon the housetop, and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Now, this is where I'm going to get my other digital scan copy here. As you can see, this is another digital photo scan of the original AV 1611. And right here where my finger is, as you can see that word there? The highlighted word? That highlighted word is what the King James translators use. It's stuff. It's basically, it is the word stuff, and that's the very word that the King James translators used when they were translating that passage there. In that day he which shall be upon the housetop, and his stuff in the house. Okay? So even in the original 1611, again they used the word stuff there. And again, I hope that you were able to see that that highlighted word there, because that was the word. That was basically the word stuff there. And his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. And he that is in the field, let him not return back. Let him likewise not return back. So you can see there, it's pretty clear there that the word stuff was used in the original 1611. It wasn't somehow magically put in our Bibles in 2009 by CERN or Mandela. The word stuff has always been in our King James Bibles. Alright, let's continue here. And we're also going to, in addition to what I just showed you here, to that digital scan copy of the passage of Luke 17, I also basically gathered some other evidence. I wrote here, and let's also look at some of the older English Bibles which preceded the KJV, and we'll see also that they also use the term. We'll see also that they use the term stuff. Okay, and then so I showed him the Coverdale Bible. I showed him for Luke 17:31 that passage. I gave him what the Coverdale Bible said. Then I gave him the Geneva Bible and the Great Bible, and you're going to see here in the Tyndale Bible, and all of them say stuff. All of them. Not one of those Bibles, and all those Bibles that have preceded the King James Bible, none of them say, possessions. Now, possessions is, I do believe that is a word in the, King James Bible. The King James, as a matter of fact, the word possession appears in the King James Bible 47 times. 104 times. It appears in 47 chapters in the Bible, but it appears a total of 104 times, okay? And possession is a King James Bible word, but so is stuff. If you look in, I'm looking at my search software here again, and it shows that the word stuff appears 16 times in the King James Bible. Okay, well, let me show you what these. One moment here. As you can see here, I'm just showing you from the screen here. As you can see, I gave him the Coverdale Bible rendering, Again, you can see his stuff. And the Geneva Bible was the other one I gave him. And again, it says here, and his stuff in the house. Gray Bible, again, stuff. And then the Tyndale Bible, you can see, they all say stuff. And so, and then I gave him also the Bishop's Bible, and it said, I'm sure you already guessed it, yeah, it said the word stuff. So, and then what I wrote to Brother Scott here was, from the looks of it now, Brother Scott, it turns out that the word stuff is not that modern as many may have thought it to be. It goes back farther, even before the time of the King James Holy Bible. As a matter of fact, the very word stuff is an early 14th century word. I'm sure some of you may, that are watching this may not have known that. But that very word stuff is actually it is an early 14th century word. And of course, I verified that. I verified that when I looked up the etymology of the word, of that very word. Continuing here. And many people, especially they that adhere to the Mandela effect, would think that the term possibly could not be stuff since it sounds so modern. And it does not sound more archaic like possessions. Nevertheless, as I already pointed out, there are archaic sounding words even in the modern versions. Hence, it would make sense for the King James Holy Bible to have both archaic sounding words and also more modern sounding words in it. Now, I also looked up the rendering of this verse in the Wycliffe Bible. And now, of course, the Wycliffe Bible, it doesn't say stuff, it says vessels. But still, there's a lot of the pre-1611 English Bibles that do use the word stuff. So pretty much, my point was, in other words, I made my point pretty, to Scott Johnson there. And again, I wonder if he even read this whole email. I wonder about that, I hope he did. I hope he just didn't skim through it, because people do have a tendency to do that, when they don't want to be convinced, or they're afraid to be shown that they're wrong on a certain issue. So basically, that was the seventh change that we dealt with about stuff versus possessions. Now let's go to the next one. This is another alleged change that Scott Johnson brought up, and it's bed or couch. I guess where Scott Johnson is getting this stuff from is from either the website, the Mandela Effect website, or he's getting it from some of his listeners that do support the Mandela Effect. But this is just like one of the other alleged changes that Scott Johnson was, talking about, and saying that it should be. I believe he said it should be. I'm trying to remember, because you got to remember this study that he did on the Mandela Effect was like an 8 to 9. I think it's a 10-hour study. I think he said it was a 10-hour study. It was pretty long. But again, I listened to the whole study and didn't skip any of it. I listened to the whole study, took time to hear the matter out, and then I took my own time to do my due diligence in studying it and to refute it. But basically, it says here, once again, like the case of care versus cares, in this example, we will see that both the term bed and couch are used in the Holy Scripture. And then I gave him a scripture in Luke 5, and let's see here, Luke 5. I'm going to turn to it right now. Okay, Luke chapter 5, verses 19 through 24. I'll just read I'll read the first. I'll read the whole passage here. It says the following here, Luke 5, 19 through 24. And when they could not find by what way they might bring him in because of the multitude, they went upon the housetop and let him down through the tiling with his couch into the midst before Jesus. And when he saw their faith, he said unto him, Man, thy sins are forgiven thee. And the scribes and the Pharisees began to reason, saying, Who is this which speaketh blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God alone? But when Jesus perceived their thoughts, he answering said unto them, What reason ye in your hearts? Whether it is easier to say, Thy sins be forgiven thee, or to say, Rise up and walk? But that ye may know that the Son of Man hath power upon earth to forgive sins, he said unto the sick of the palsy, I say unto thee, Arise and take up thy couch, and go into thine house. And so basically, and immediately he rose up before them, and this is verse 25 here, and took up that whereon he lay, and departed to his own house, glorifying God. And so, then I write this to Scott Johnson again. I write this, in this passage we see that the term couch is used. And then when I checked out the 1611 King James Version of this passage, and again, I went ahead and I sent him a copy of the digital scan of the original 1611, and as you can see here, this is the copy that I sent him. Just read that highlighted. As you're reading this, just make sure you check out that highlighted word right there. You see it says couch. Yeah, so that, and I know there's some other words that are highlighted there, but I just wanted you to focus on that one highlighted word there, because that's basically showing you that it said couch, and not, it wasn't bed, it was couch. But basically, and I went to another scripture passage of scripture. It was Mark chapter 2 verses 4 through 12, and this is what it read here in Mark chapter 2 verses 4. Now I'm not going to read the whole passage for the sake of time, but it says in the following, in Mark chapter 2 verses, let's see here, Mark chapter 2 verse 4, it says the following, And when they could not come nigh unto him for the press, they uncovered the roof where he was, and when they had broken it up, they let down the bed wherein the sick of the palsy lay. So we see here, that the King James Bible uses both the word couch and bed. So, if Scott Johnson and the other Mandelites would just take time to really study these different passages, the different gospel accounts, they would see that, the King James Bible word may use a certain term in one passage, and then it uses another one in another passage, So again, in Luke 5, the King James Bible used the word couch. But in the Gospel of Mark, the King James translators decided to use the word bed. They're both correct. There's no issue here. So, and I just wrote this to Scott. Hence, we see that the word bed was never changed at all to couch. See, he's saying that the Mandela effect changed the word bed in the King James Bible, and now it's saying couch. So no, the word bed was never changed at all to couch by the Mandela effect, since both terms bed and couch both appear in the King James Holy Bible. And that was my what I wrote to him there. And we're going to go to the next alleged change now, brother. Before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video because I see that I'm running down on time. So I'll see you in the next part. Thank you for watching.